This video is sponsored by Tokyo Treat. So this is one of the best chapters in the series, and that's pretty incredible because we're coming off of the previous chapter, which was also one of the best in the series, and a chapter that I personally considered a 10 out of 10, which means that this chapter is pretty much a 10 out of 10 as well, meaning that we have consecutive 10 out of 10 chapters here. What a time to be alive. This chapter has everything I've ever wanted from One Punch Man. To go back to the origin of my channel, you'll see that I've always talked about, what's going on with Blast, how strong is he, what's he going to be like in a fight, what does Disaster Level God look like, how strong is that going to be, what is Awakened Garo going to be like in the manga, and what's it going to be like when Saitama finally gets serious. Well, this chapter has it all. I almost feel, at least as an individual, not worthy of this. I feel like Poof and Yuppie from Hunter x Hunter. Yes, I finally read Hunter x Hunter, by the way, and I'll be making a video on my thoughts on the series soon, and I'll also be covering its return on the channel. Coming off of the previous chapter, we saw Garo hit Saitama with the gamma ray burst, and that kind of took him out of the picture for a little bit. So he was able to come back down to the surface and approach everyone that was left there. And we're seeing the result of that, which is like people nearly dying, especially the weaker ones. And this is because Garo has become so powerful from the abilities that God has given him, which is the knowledge of the flow of all energy and behavior of all forces in the universe. Garo now perpetually emits cosmic radiation, and as he approaches, Bang says, "Inside of Garo I can sense something evil that is not Garo. As I thought, you're being controlled after all." Garo says, "I told you, this is of my own free will." So this goes back to the previous chapter of Garo inadvertently accepting God's influence, where God said that Garo is essentially going to become his avatar. But Garo also said that, I'm doing this of my own free will. Yes, he is accepting his power, but it's not like he's being possessed by God, which is true, but nonetheless, he is still being controlled by him in a way. It's not like there's no strings attached here, pun intended, with the puppet stuff. Hey guys, also, if you like my One Punch Man content, please subscribe if you haven't already. It's fine if you don't want to, but if you just needed a reminder, here you go. But then Blast shows up, and once again, the thing that we have discussed in my Patreon Q&A video last week has happened in this chapter, and in that video, I pretty much say the same thing I always have. I don't think it's likely, but it's very possible considering how crazy the manga's continuity has become. And, what do you know? Blast is here. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, and that's Tokyo Treat. Tokyo Treat is a monthly subscription box where you'll get up to 20 of the latest, most exclusive, limited edition, and seasonal flavored Japanese snacks that only are available in Japan and for a limited time, like Japanese Pepsi, Kit Kats, and many more. This month's box is Summer Matsuri. It's piled high with the most exclusive and flavorful snacks Japan's summer festivals have to offer. It also comes with this useful booklet that's full of information not only on the snacks in the box, but also on Japanese culture, such as what's going on with the summer festivals. So the ramen we got this month is UFO Strong Dashi Yakisoba. Wow, I don't want to sound pretentious, but that's like pure umami. This might be the best ramen I've had from them so far. And of course, we got to talk about the special Japanese Kit Kats that we always get from Tokyo Treat. And this month, it's cookies and cream. It's always amazing. Like, the Kit Kats in the Tokyo Treat box are always like the highlight of it. I mean, everything's good, but they're like almost too good. So guys, if you're interested in getting all of this awesome stuff every month, please check out the link in the description and use code Zhoniin to get $5 off your box. Thanks, guys. And he says, it's just as Silverfang says, you're being controlled by God. And I think this is the first time that Blast has ever said, like, God. Before this, he's only really referred to God as like him or it. He's never like outright said God. And going further, he says, you couldn't tell by the nature of the divine power you were given. Any attack you unleash while on this planet could endanger the very existence of all things. Does that line up with what your actual goals are? So I guess this confirms that Blast is very much aware of what's been going on with Garo. I mean, we barely get any insight into what he's really thinking or what he's actually paying attention to outside of like God. And that's another reason why I didn't fully expect him to show up here, because previously he was like concerned with closing the dimensional seal that was like ruptured, that's implied to be holding back God. So either that means that he's fixed it and now he has some spare time to come and deal with Garo, or he kind of just put the burden on his crew. His crew that is kind of like in this weird retconny purgatory right now. It was like initially revealed that it was like one of Boros's race members, this lion dude and this elf girl, but then that got retconned and they're kind of just silhouettes now. So it's like, we're not supposed to know they exist, but we kind of do know. Then Garo says, if that's true, what are you saying I should do about it? And Blast says, if you've accepted the reality of the situation for the time being, let me lead you to another dimension. So this other dimension, I'm assuming, is that place that he was at with his team. This is where like the dimensional seal was that's implied to be holding God back from entering our reality, I guess. Now when Blast says this, who knows what he actually means? Part of you kind of wants to think like, oh, Blast is going to take him there and then heal him or fix him, right? But another part of you thinks, oh, he's going to take him there and just straight up kill him. But at this point, Blast reveals the whole thing about how he's like emitting cosmic radiation and that humans cannot tolerate it. They have no resistance to it like I do. They will all just die from you being here. Oh yeah, Blast is resistant to this cosmic radiation, no surprise there. But then Blast says, I hope he'll listen to reason and come along with me, but if not, it'll be a battle for supremacy between two beings who manipulate the reality of the cosmos to decide who is right and who is wrong. So I love this statement for many reasons. First of all, it's giving us insight into what Blast's abilities are, and it also gives us insight into like Blast's moral compass. This could mean that Blast is fully aware that only the strongest get to decide what is right and what is wrong, which is like one of the lingering themes of One Punch Man for sure. But him saying two beings who manipulate the reality of the cosmos goes back to what I've been speculating about Blast for the longest time now, and it's that his power is related to God in some way. So I guess this means that Blast also has gained knowledge of the flow of all energy and the behavior of all forces in the universe. Now, I doubt he has it on the level of Garo here, but I also highly doubt that he has Garo's genius skill adaptation ability. But how does Blast have this ability? Well, we don't know, of course, we literally just found this out, but it goes back to me thinking that Blast might have made a deal with God at first, or had some kind of interaction with the cube, and was able to break away from God's control, but retain the abilities that he gained from it. And I also think that Blast is like an Esper somewhat, and that's how he's even able to do this stuff in the first place. And that goes all the way back to Fubuki saying that Blast is an Esper in the data book, aka the One Punch Man Encyclopedia. But anyway, I digress. So Garo is kind of like cool with this. He's fine with emitting this cosmic radiation and everyone dying as a result of it. And he says, I am that miserable future, disaster level God. I talked about this in the video I made last week, that we were probably going to get this moment. And no, this isn't like the official narration box designating Garo as disaster level God. Now, I personally don't need it. I mean, it would be really cool, but I just think at this point Garo is objectively disaster level God regardless. But then we get an inner monologue from Garo and he's like, others will be miserable just by being around it. Finish the old man off right here. I'll never see Tario again either. That's how it needs to be, for his sake as well. So yeah, Garo is still there. I mean, his mind is certainly not in the same place that it was a few chapters ago. He's definitely the most unhinged and towards the left-hand path that he's ever been. The core of him is still very much conscious. And speaking of Tario, we see him and he's still there in the vicinity, and he's like face down, you know, nose bleeding from getting affected by the cosmic radiation. Also, Monaco's here, who's also being affected by the radiation, but she's the one who witnesses Tario, and I guess Monaco's going to save Tario here. I mean, that seems like the most likely thing, but I'm still very suspicious of Monaco. She bears the eye of Horus. But anyway, Genos, who's been like a torso for the last 15 chapters, like burst in there trying to stop Garo still. But of course, this has no effect on him, and Garo's like, Demon Cyborg, huh? How heroic. So that Baldy was at a high enough level to have an S-class hero like you as an apprentice. And I'm glad that this is brought up here, because this is actually, or at least I think this is how Garo knew Saitama's name in the previous chapter. Because I don't think Saitama ever like revealed his name to Garo before that, right? And the only other time that Garo had heard Saitama's name was when he was originally fighting against Genos, like way back in, I think, chapter 83, where he says, like, yeah, my master Saitama, he's like, you know, beyond S-class. And that like planted the seed in Garo's mind, like, oh, there's like a guy out there who's beyond S-Class. And once he finally saw a guy that was like beyond anything else he had encountered before, he kind of put two and two together and was like, oh, this is Saitama for sure. Now we're getting into the real craziness of this chapter, because Blast finally just decides to attack Garo and fires off a dimension cannon at him. But as Garo's dodging this, Blast opens up a portal and winds up behind Garo and hits him with a gravity knuckle. Then he sends Garo into another portal, and that portal sends him to another portal that sends him into Blast's fist. And Blast is just lighting Garo up with gravity knuckles, sending him in and out of portals. This is just an incredible sequence. It's like battle manga Doctor Strange. But Blast tries to like fully close this portal, I'm assuming putting Garo in the other dimension possibly. But Garo breaks out of it and he's like, I see how it is. And in his left fist, he has the nuclear fission, but in his right fist, he has the gravity knuckle. Going back to Garo's insane genius skill adaptation ability, he's already figured out how to do the gravity knuckle. Now, if this was like pre-Cosmic Fear Garo, of course he wouldn't have been able to do this. Now that he has the knowledge of the flow of all energy, he can do this. And at the end of this chapter, Viv showed Blackbeard with the Gura Gura no Mi and the Yami Yami no Mi. And it's a very fitting analogy, because aside from like Saitama, these are essentially like the two greatest powers in One Punch Man at this moment. But he winds up throwing a barrage of nuclear fission and gravity knuckle at Blast. But Blast is also able to counter against it and creates his own little individual portals, sending them in there. And those portals redirect to the sky where we see all those massive explosions happening. And then another portal opens up and they all get sucked into there. This is just... It totally makes sense that Blast is capable of doing this, because we saw what happened when Flashy Flash went like full power, full speed against Blast. It was nothing. Like, he wound up defeating Flashy Flash via fear. So now we're seeing that somebody at that level is capable of doing this. This winds up breaking them apart, and Blast says the gates are bursting from the overload of energy. If this goes on much longer, this will become a dead planet. To be honest, I'm surprised the planet is not dead yet. And Garo says, I see now, you're not S-Class rank 1 for nothing it seems, but for me, now you're not even worth my attention. Then he grabs Genos and he says that Baldy still wasn't giving it his all. Right now, if I copy and refine his full power, I can win, and I can make him bring out his full strength. So I don't think this necessarily means that he's saying that like Blast is a weakling or anything, which it's quite the opposite here. He's giving Blast some serious props. But he does realize that Blast is not as strong as Saitama, which we pretty much knew at this point. And he's already tasted Blast's power and he's obtained his gravity knuckle, but he's like, I need to go higher than that, which is Saitama at his full power, which he's acknowledging here he still hasn't shown yet. And how's he gonna do that? Well, kill his disciple, of course. And he like stabs Genos through his chest and pulls out his core. Then Saitama shows up. Like I said in the beginning, last time we saw him was getting blown away by the gamma ray burst. And who knows where he's been since then, but he's back now. And he's not happy. And Blast is like, you're the guy from before? Don't come close. So he's talking about obviously the moment when Blast, was initially revealed fully in the series, and Saitama, Flash, and Minako found that cube under the Monster Association, and he's still somehow not aware that Saitama is the one above all. Like, if he was aware enough of what's going on with Garo, how is he not aware of who Garo is fighting? But Garo throws Genos' core at Saitama and he catches it. And then he has this flashback of him and Genos says, it's amazing how you always manage to be there on time. I guess that's a hero for you. And Saitama says, nah, I usually arrive too late. And yeah, it turns out that is the case. And Saitama starts to question himself and he says, do I really have a hero's intuition? Sure doesn't seem like it. Then we see the true Saitama here, and he throws a serious punch at Garo, but this isn't like a normal serious punch. This is like the death punch. This is like the same serious demon Saitama that we saw against Genos in their training match. But this is exactly what Garo wanted, and he goes back into his mode Saitama and matches the serious punch. And then Blast is like, this energy, this is bad, the earth will be shattered. And that's where the chapter ends. So yeah, Blast is absolutely correct here. If two serious punches collide, in theory the earth would be destroyed by this, or at least it would cause an extinction level event. So it's possible that Blast might send both of them to the other dimension, like where his team is. And if they go there, then they can fight all out and there would seemingly be no repercussions, at least to the Earth. I mean, who knows how the rules work in the other dimension? But at least, Earth won't be destroyed as a result. And I speculated that this would kind of be like the final battle of One Punch Man, to be honest, like Saitama and God fighting in some other dimension or something, but man, I was thinking too low. And I guess by the time we get to that point, the bar will be raised so much that it'll be something that we haven't even thought of at this point. But yeah, this chapter is pretty much as good as it gets in battle manga, in my opinion. And I just feel so lucky to be able to experience this at this point in time. But let me know what you guys think about this chapter in the comments. Who do you think is going to come out on top? I mean, obviously Saitama, but how many serious punches do you think Garo is going to be able to take or compete with? Let me know in the comments, and if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.